I'm subscribed to hundreds of email lists. I'm ashamed to say I have over 100,000 unopened emails. And yet, over the past 3 years, there is one writer who I have never missed. He sends daily emails that ooze with seductive storytelling, crisp communication, and are rich with insightful ideas. And the crazy part? You probably haven't heard of him. His name is John Bajkovic, and in the email marketing world, he is an underground legend. I had the pleasure of having him as a writing coach several years ago, and I have never learned so much about how to write with personality and how to share stories that people love. It was one of my best investments. And so for my birthday last year, I asked him to deliver a private interview for my customers. He had such a vast range of useful tips for how to write well and how to build a great business that it feels almost like a sin to keep it a secret. And so to celebrate starting on YouTube, you can now watch this interview for free. If you want to be a much better storyteller and grow your business by sharing ideas you believe in, this one's for you. Grab yourself a cup of tea and enjoy. Yeah.
Like I was basically like what you pointed out. Like I had my like work routine, I had my gym routine, and in the evenings I was reading. And like there were I managed to recreate that lifestyle wherever I was going.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like it was good, and I'm definitely glad I did it. And I think that I might do it again. But I
Yeah.
think after a time, I was just like, I just need a break, like, and because I didn't have any kind of home base anymore,
Mhm.
and I was just living out of a backpack, and like also I was moving every maybe 6 weeks max, and it just became
It's quite a
exhausting
lot.
after.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a funny one because when I was a dentist, I used to dream about solo traveling.
Yeah.
And I've just been having so much fun just sitting in my flat, and but I was like, look, if you don't do it now, when you're 40 or 50, you're gonna look back and think, like, dude, what the hell, man? Like, you could at least go do it somewhere sunny. Um, but I'm a bit conscious that well, the workload or the work output will drop significantly. Even though, like right now, you can only really do 4 or 5 hours of real productive work. Yeah, and that's a little bit scary, man. Like, how did you find that? Or were you pretty happy with it?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's part of the thing where like I I mean, for me also I realized that if I wasn't working regularly, like I would actually enjoy the traveling less,
Hmm.
because from like I'm not the kind of person where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just like happy go lucky, and like things happen to me and I'm like just gonna go strolling out in the city, I'm gonna meet people. It's more like, okay, like I'm here. I don't know, I gotta like somehow make something happen consciously.
Yeah,
Right. And I know that if I'm not, if I don't have that kind of base of being like, okay, well, I'm working throughout the morning, and that gives me this stability and that gives me this feeling of like I'm accomplishing something. If
yeah,
I didn't have that, then I know like even when I was just at home, if I would let myself have the whole day free, I just get like, I honestly get depressed because I'm just like, I
yeah,
didn't do
sure.
anything. I feel like a slug. I've just been on the couch the whole day, like surfing the internet and so on. And so I was working regularly while I was traveling.
Sorry, man. Let's try and mute whoever that noise is coming from.
No worries.
Oh. Yeah, no, dude, I get that. I mean, I took 2 weeks off and we done a bit of island hopping in Greece, and I was very angsty by the end of it. And I think the whole thing is that well, when writing is so much fun, it's like why would you not do it?
Yeah.
And my plan for tomorrow, flying over to Madeira, is a bit of writing, but you're not allowed to do any content related writing.
Okay.
Like you're not ticking a box. So I think that'd be quite fun. But otherwise, I do see the value in like just trying to get a bit of space, just to like think stuff through, kind of point the ship in the right direction, sort of thing.
I agree. And I think that it's like a huge thing to just like take some time off and like break yourself out of the usual pattern of like
Yeah,
thinking and routine, because it's amazing how like for me, like I just get into like into stupid habits, and I'm just like, yeah, it's like that old ham story. It's like, oh, like why do we make the ham that? I don't know if you know this story, but it's
no,
like
I don't, but let's hear it.
typical marketing story. It's like, oh, like I don't know, it's Thanksgiving or something, and the it's I don't know, 1980s story. So like the wife is preparing the ham, and she cuts off the ends of the ham, and she puts it into the oven, and the husband is like, why do you cut off the ends of the ham? She's like, that's the way you do it. He's like, but why? I don't know, my mom did it that way. And then they call the mom and they like ask, well, like, why did you always cut off the ends of the ham? She's like, it's just the way you do it. And they're like, all right, well, why? And it's like, it's how grandma did it. And then
Yeah,
it turns out,
sure.
grandma had like a short like frying pan or whatever, and she had to cut off the ends of the ham. So it's kind of like you get into these like routines of just being like, yeah, it's how it's done.
Yeah.
And
I can
even
feel
though,
that just in terms of like creating content and stuff as well. I was sort of looking at the stuff I was doing and it was like, well, why do we do this again? And it's been quite nice to try mix it up a little bit, different formats, different styles and stuff. So I'm hoping just change of environments, a bit of like a shock to the system.
mm,
And worst case, when we go traveling, if I do it for a month and I'm like, you know what, it was okay, like I'll just settle. I'll come live near you in Barca, man.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, before we kind of carry on, hey everybody, thank you for coming to our fourth birthday bash. Today we're speaking with John Major-Kovic, and I'm obviously really excited. I'm a massive fanboy. You guys have probably seen me promote him a few times now. John is a masterful storyteller, and I have 93,000 unopened emails in my Gmail, which is bloody awful. John is my most consistently opened writer by far. I actually catch up with him on purpose for two reasons. Excellent storyteller, but also just the way he communicates. I think that he builds a reputation just as much as he's building a business. And that's something that I try, obviously, to pass on to you guys quite a lot. So it's really cool to have you here, John. Thank you for taking an hour to do it. And we're just going to chat through some stuff, mate. So yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really grateful and actually honored that you invited me. And anything that I can contribute, I'm very happy to do.
Well, it's funny because when I was going, I think it was copywriting, the copywriting podcast, and I heard someone talking about you. It's like an A-list copywriter saying that you're like an underground email marketing legend, and I do remember signing up. I was like, "What the hell is Desert Kite?" And just like it was so basic and stuff, but it's like I don't know, man. I just really like the way that you've been doing things. And do you want to just give everyone like a TLDR of kind of what you do, how long you've been writing for, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically the way that just before we kick this off, you were talking about traveling and having like a proper job and daydreaming about being able to travel. And that was me. I had the same where I kind of coasted through my 20s largely without doing a lot of work. I was just in graduate school, and then I had to eventually get a job. And I was just thinking every day, because I was sitting in an office and I was just thinking like, God, I just want to get out of here. And like it would be so amazing to be able to travel and to work for myself. And I wouldn't even care if I made any money, just as long as I could be independent. And then it kind of happened. I just I was working in IT. I knew a guy who was writing online, doing basically content writing, and he told me you could do this as well. I took a week's vacation off of my regular IT job, and I sat at home, and it took me 1 week to write one, I think like 200-word article. But I said, okay, I can do this. Like I've managed to write this, and it's taken me long, but I'll manage to do better the next time around. And that was the start of it. I quit my job, started writing content online for the Motley Fool, which is this like financial publisher.
Yeah.
And then within about 2 months of doing that, they like fired everybody that they had like writing kind of freelance. So I like quit my job to become kind of a writer for the Motley Fool. And within 2 months, that was over. And I was like, I really don't want to go back to the office. And so
I
I
thought
just
I
went.
thought you meant that they fired everyone but you because you were that good, but no, you got the
Yeah,
axe
that,
as
that
well.
would have been amazing. That would have been the start of some
That's a
like
hell of a start story. Yeah, yeah, no, just the best straight away. But okay, cool.
we really looked at the stats, and like you came out, miles ahead. No, like it didn't. I think I even tried to be like smart about it. So I like followed up with them, and I was like, hey, like, is there anything I can do? And they're like, nope, that's it. You're all fired. I mean, they were nice about it, but there was basically nothing to do. And then I think after that, I didn't want to go back to work, normal work, and so I started hustling. I started writing little Kindle ebooks about essential oils and about alternative health. I did that for a year. I made some money actually. I sold a lot of books, but it's hard to make a living when you're selling books for $1.99 and making, I think, 60% royalties of that.
Mm.
And then via that, I started to feel more comfortable about writing, and I learned a lot about marketing because I was trying to market those books as well. And then I started working with clients, started doing kind of copywriting, direct response copywriting. That was in 2015. And I did that for a number of years. And in the meantime, I also started my own like email newsletter, daily email, and started writing that. And then like as my copywriting career took off, my daily email newsletter was very, very flatlining for a while, but I was just doing it because I liked doing it.
Mm.
And eventually it kind of got to a point where I could, just kind of live off of the daily email stuff and the courses that I created and the trainings that I created. And for the past 2, 3 years, I'm doing some other stuff as well, but the daily email stuff has become like a major, if not the main part of what I do. So
How do you find
that's
the transition from a freelancer to offer owner?
I did it very gradually, and I think for me it was actually great because it was very low pressure, and it was very insightful because for so many years I've been writing for clients, and I think it's you if you're a copywriter, a freelance copywriter, which is what I was, you don't really understand. You don't understand a lot of stuff about what really sells, what really is the concern of the client, that there's a lot of other pieces they don't have to do with your copy. So for me, it was great. Now that I'm kind of moved into being an offer owner, I feel that, Dan Kennedy, who's this marketing legend, he has this thing where he says people are like cats. They always want to be in the other room. Like wherever you put them, like they go to the door and meow. And so like wherever you go, at least for me, maybe I'm that kind of person, but I'm like, huh, everything has its own problems. So I'm like, when I was sitting in the office, I'm like, it would be amazing to have freedom and travel. And I
Yeah.
got that with freelance copywriting. And then when I got to freelance copywriting, I was like, man, it would be amazing to have my own offers and just to be kind of like free of clients. And now I have my own offers, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe freelance copywriting wasn't such a bad deal.
Hmm.
So I feel like
I
once you're in a world, you realize it's always got its pros and cons as well.
I feel that entirely. Obviously, I've kind of dived into the offer side, and I do look at freelance writers, and I'm like, it would be quite nice to not have that full responsibility from every single step of the process. But I have noticed, at least I've made this mistake where like maybe you're just getting bored of the room, right? And then you either try to go into the other room or you start comparing to a different kind of standard, and then you're getting worse at what you actually do. And I found myself getting into a funk a few times over the past 3 years where I'm looking at like agency owners and I'm like, oh my God, I should be building an agency because digital products aren't a real business. It's like, how stupid can you be? But that's the comparison game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Because I mean, if you look at all the agency owners, it seems like, I don't know how much you notice this, but right now there's like, I can name, I think, 10 ex-agency owners who've created coaching businesses where it's all about like, here's how to get out of the agency world, and here's how to live your life in a much more
Of course.
simple way. Like these huge margins that you don't make with agencies, and stop being on sales calls and do it all via email and just write an email a day and have a coaching program, and that's that. So they want what we have and we want what they have. And I think that's a part of life.
Yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've written in finance, you've written in health. You've obviously got the copywriting side. You're quite a multi-niche writer. Do you find that same universal principles are applying across niches? Because we've got everyone coming from all sort of places.
I think yes and no. I mean, like large scale. I mean, if you look at Cialdini's 6 things, you're going to find them in every kind of sales promotion. That said, I think that every market is kind of unique. Every market has its own hot buttons. They have language that they respond to. They have unique concerns, and I think that you can be good in a few different niches, but you also can't be good in every niche. And I think it also takes time to learn a specific niche and to learn the market and learn what those hot buttons are and learn what people care about. And, you know, there's, if you're writing, I don't know, for example, a sales letter in the health space, it's going to be different than if you're writing a sales letter in the make money online space. And it's going to have a different format. It's going to have different appeals. And It's not that you can't do both and you can't learn both, but I think it's also that people who say like, oh, it's just copywriting and it's just human psychology, be like, yeah, but at the same time, specificity is very, very good and very powerful, and you want to be able to have that specificity.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone here is kind of building personal brand-based businesses, and I think the biggest mistake people make, and myself included, is that you try to please everyone and please no one. And I say I've had a call with a friend last night, and you've got to pick a lane or you're going to get left behind. And because it's so competitive, the more specialized you are, even if it feels scary, it's like a paradox, right? It's like the narrower you go, the easier it is to become known for something. Therefore, online, it's like 100x the result. And I guess your specialty, mate, now, well, at least outside looking in, is that it's for me, it's the storytelling. And so, have you always been a good storyteller? Is my first question.
I mean, I don't know, like it's not something that I ever really thought about too much, but it seemed like I don't know, my dad I think is very good at telling stories, and I always kind of envy him because he's always got very ready stories, and I feel like maybe just like via some osmosis I picked up just kind of the tone and the tension of being like, okay, well, you gotta kind of lead people on, you gotta get them excited before you make that reveal, whatever that reveal is. Um, so I think that maybe, and like I genuinely loved watching movies when I was a kid. I've read a lot, and I think all of that stuff kind of builds up over time. And again,
Mm.
by osmosis, you just kind of like learn, like, okay, well, all the stories that I've read, like, does this thing that I'm trying to say, does that sound like that? Does it fit into that mold? And if not, how can I change it? So I think maybe I had some sort of skill when I came into this world. I mean, the world of, let's say, online writing.
But
Um,
not straight out of the womb.
Yeah, not definitely not. Not like when I was like 8 years old that there was like a group of adults hanging around me being like, okay, tell us, John, like tell us what happened then. It's probably just like like any other kid of just like telling the story that had 0 point, zero punch.
Yes,
Oh,
for sure.
I walked out and there was a bottle there. And my mom is like, okay, and what? And like,
Good for you, John.
but I mean, I can tell you now that when I look at stuff that I've written a few years ago, um, like I'm like, I would do this differently now. I think it's better. And I notice stuff that I'm like, oh, this kind of falls flat, or I feel like I could have done more. And I mean, some of that might be just like kind of, I don't know, technical embellishment where maybe it's not really contributing all that much to the story.
Mhm.
But when I'm looking at stuff that I wrote, a lot of stuff that I wrote in the first couple of years of my copywriting career, I'm like, I thought this was great when I wrote it, but I could do it much better now. So that's all to say that, yeah, maybe you start with some sort of initial level, but there's definitely a lot of room for improvement. I think the biggest room for improvement is simply practice and just being like, okay, well, let me try to do it again today and see what else I can learn.
Yeah. What would you say you were getting wrong a few years ago that you don't do now?
I mean, for example, like the very usual stuff of just being like, yeah, you want to like inject some emotion, some color into that story, right? Not just to share the facts. And I think that's super obvious. And also for me, when I still think that the essence of a story should be like the actual story, in the sense of like, I don't like to embellish something that's a completely mundane event and be like, and that's my incredible story that I've managed to tell you by inserting a bunch of adjectives in there. But you can build up tension by, describing things, by taking little detours, by like highlighting certain specific details which seem irrelevant on the surface of it, but which are actually setting a certain kind of mood. And those are the things that, to an extent, I can do consciously now. I mean, unconsciously, there was a period when I had to do it consciously, and there was a period just when I wasn't doing it at all because I didn't really realize that
Mm.
that's what contributes to a story. So I think I was always kind of good at taking like the skeleton of a story and being like, okay, well, here's a relevant story, and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and has a kind of punchline. And if you read it, you're going to have a certain experience. But I think that now I'm much better at maybe enhancing that and maybe taking a story that would be kind of like on a five and turning it maybe into an eight,
Mm.
uh, or I wouldn't go below a five in terms of
Yeah, well,
basic
you
stuff.
I mean, I asked John to critique 10 of my emails once, and I thought I was quite good at storytelling, and like it was the same thing. They were all like fours or fives, and the big one was specificity in the hook. So like I always open up being like, one of the most important things about writing is blah blah blah, and it's like you've got to teleport your reader in, and so I always try to do like a snapshot of life now, and that's from you. And it's like Chekhov's gun, right? Where it's like you mention little things here and there, just to either like colors and the senses and stuff. And people, all that to say, you said about kind of it being unconscious competence now, but once you can kind of work out your weak spots, the way I did it after your coaching was I just had a checklist of all the stuff you told me I sucked at, and then I just started iterating on them.
I
And
never, I never said you sucked. It was very, I try to be very gentle when I'm doing critiques. So, yeah.
you
But
were,
no, I mean,
you were gentle.
your emails were always good. And, you came and you're like, okay, well, tell me what I can do better. And yeah, and I think that that's like a classic thing where, and I think a lot of us, we like open up the email with this preamble that oftentimes isn't really needed, and it's kind
Yeah.
of like, let me let me have an introduction to what I'm going to talk about, which is very, very waffly, this kind of
Hmm.
like spongy, pointless introduction instead of just, again, classic story is there's that movie Lost Horizon, about their finding Shangri-La. And I
Hmm.
forget who directed that. I think it was like one of those like classic Hollywood directors like George Cukor or somebody like that. And supposedly this movie like ran for, I don't know, 3 hours, and they showed it in the movie theater and people were just like falling asleep, and the director was pulling his hair out, and they thought the studio was going to lose a huge amount of money because this thing cost a lot of money to make. And it was back in the days when they had like actual reels of film, and
Yeah.
apparently they lost the master first reel or it burned or something like that. And they had to like just jump into the movie 45 minutes in, and the movie became a hit. Like they lost the first 45 minutes of the movie and completely lost all of that introduction. And then the rest of the movie was clear enough on its own, as it was exciting enough on its own. And I feel like a lot of times that's how writing is, like you.
100%.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, like but my newsletter format always has the same thing where it goes intro, ad, and then the body.
Mhm.
And I'd say 99 times out of 100, I write the intro, I write the ad, I write the body, and delete the intro and then move half the body up to the intro
Yeah.
again. And it just always gets better. And I'm like, well, now I think the hard people really struggle with hooks.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel like with creative problems, the more you try to grasp it, the harder it can be. And it's actually better just to let like everything out, and then you can just delete the most boring part if you're writing. At least that's the way I like to do it.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, what one habit that I have, which is to like, whenever I'm stuck in a way, I like write down 10 ideas. So it's like, okay, well, I don't really have a great idea for an article that I could write. Okay, let me write down 10. Because if I'm
Hmm.
just sitting there trying to come up with the right one, it's really, really hard. But
Hmm.
if I make it easy for myself, I'm like, okay, let me write 10 ideas for how I could open up this article, or for the topic for the article, or for the headline, or for some transition, or for a metaphor, or anything like that. It's really quick and easy to come up with 10 mediocre ideas. And one of those, or two of those, or three of those won't be mediocre. And in
Hmm.
that case, just pick that one. But if I'm somehow trying to like will myself to come up with one good idea, that can be really hard. It can be really stressful. It can take a long time. And
Hmm.
so same idea here, where just like, just get it down on paper. You're not wedded to this thing. You can throw it away. You can change it. You can delete it and move something else up in its place. And, we tend to get attached to stuff that we've somehow like given birth to, like, oh, we've put it on the page. It's there. You don't want to
Yeah.
throw it away. I had a copywriting coach who actually had a very good um, way of dealing with this, which is that when he was writing a sales letter, he would keep a second document, which he called the cutting room floor. And
Mm.
so whenever he came across something, he's like, this doesn't really fit, this isn't great, And rather than deleting it and having that emotional resistance to deleting it, he'd cut it and paste it there and be like, oh yeah, it's there. If I ever need it, I can go back and and reuse it or put it somewhere else, but it doesn't fit here, right? And this thing will
Mm.
be.
I've actually done something kind of similar. My cutting room floor is Twitter now
Yeah,
because
yeah,
some parts just don't make the newsletter, and I'm like, oh, I really like that, so I just copy paste it into Hype Fury. But yeah, one thing I like about you, or maybe reword that. One thing I'm very jealous of with you is that you don't have any social media presence, right?
yeah. I'm actually on LinkedIn now, but as part of a
Welcome to hell.
it's kind of a completely like different project, and it's not. I'm not trying to like build my brand there or trying to
Yeah.
get leads. So it's something else.
So how I mean, how do you feel about not being on social media? Like, very happy with the decision? Wish you got involved, or
I mean, I don't know. In a way, I get jealous like when I see what you're doing, and like I'm like, okay, like this dude has like an audience of 200, plus thousand
this
people.
dude's going insane, man. It's not that good.
I know, but it's always like we were saying, like always want to be in the other room.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine it's stressful, and I'm already like distracted enough as I am. And
Mm.
like I tend to get like addictive, like even just like my emails, I'm checking my emails too much. I'm like seeing what's happening on the internet too much. And like I'm struggling with that stuff. And I think if I were actively, I mean, I had this health newsletter, and as part of this health newsletter, entirely separate project from my like day-to-day emails, I was on Twitter for a while. And even there, I had zero like actual presence and zero engagement. I just noticed myself still getting like sucked into that world and just checking
100%.
it multiple times a day. And so, yeah, I'm happy not doing it, and I don't see myself changing that anytime soon.
Yeah. I mean, I took a 3 year break from social media before I started writing,
Mhm.
and it's been the most surprising adverse effect how anti social media I am now, because like whilst I think it's fantastic for connection, you have to have a lot of well, you need rules. You can't even rely on willpower. So for me, there's nothing allowed on my phone.
Mm.
I'm blocked for 16 hours a day. And even then, man, like if I need to go pull a tweet for a newsletter before, even if I check just that tweet, my
Yeah,
focus is like 40% worse.
yeah.
And or I read something from someone else in a different space, and then I'm like, damn, why is that person going viral and I'm not? And then it's just, I think people need to be very careful with building on social media. But one thing I really like about the way that you're doing it is, I think social media 3 years ago was a hot iron to strike. COVID, everyone was buzzing for it, all that. And what everyone is realizing now is that actually you can't build your business on foundations of sand. And this is where email comes in. And I mean, how many emails have you sent to your list? Just your list, not for other people.
I'm guessing around 2000 now. I mean, I've been doing
Okay.
it for 5 years or more than 5 years, and I've written at least an email a day.
Yeah.
So probably around 2000, I'm guessing.
Can you run us through how your like processes from idea to publish? Because you're doing it every day, and you do it. I'm very envious of it, where you could do something on the day and it's an email for tomorrow, while like I'm 4 weeks ahead of my newsletter. So yeah, like there's pros and cons to being systemized. And yeah, did you want to run through your process for writing?
Sure. So, I mean, actually, what I do is I write an email in the morning and I send it out at night. I used to do it the night before and do it for the day after, but now I just write in the morning, and it's just part of my like daily routine. In terms of the ideas, they're very different, and I have like my own little homebrewed note-taking and journaling system. But basically, um, my system for writing emails is like two-part. Like there's got to be some sort of um, let's say hypnosis part where it's like interesting to read, and there's got to be some sort of a takeaway that's relevant. And I'm writing about, let's say, persuasion and marketing and copywriting. So most of what I most of like said the teaching that I do in the email tends to be some sort of a lesson around persuasion or marketing or copywriting or maybe psychology or something like that. But there's got to be those two. Got to be like
Amazing.
some interesting story to open up with, or some sort of illustration, and then some sort of valuable thing to take away. And the way that I do the kind of core of what I do is that I'm always just reading stuff, always taking notes. And lots of times I'm taking notes without knowing how I'm going to use it. And so sometimes it happens that I run across something, I'm like, oh, this would be a great email. And sometimes I can sketch out an email in 20 seconds on my phone, and then just flesh that out later. But other times I'm just like, oh, this is an interesting story that I read somewhere, or this is an interesting fact, or this is a valuable idea that I read in a book. And over time, because I'm collecting these and I'm, you know, in some not very systematized way, revisiting these, I guess I feel like our human brain is very good at like joining things together. It's kind of like
Mhm.
part of what we do all the time. We're like looking for connections, and creativity is basically taking unconnected things and connecting them. And so just with this large repository of interesting stories and interesting ideas, um, things tend to happen. So sometimes I'll have an interesting idea I want to write about, and then I'll look back over the most recent interesting, let's say, stories or illustrations, and I'll find one that somehow connects to that in my mind, and that's the email. And then I sit down, and in terms of writing, like what I've found to work very well is to let's say sketch it out, like to just really write fast. And I do this thing where I kind of like try to almost imagine that I've already written this email, and I
Mm.
pretend like I'm just remembering the email. Like this is almost how I look at it. I'm like, oh, I've read this email, like it's there. Let me just write down what I remember of this email. And it's this kind of way of tricking myself where I'm not going to be like, well, I've written this first sentence. Is that good? Yeah, it's okay. Like, let me write the second sentence. And then I go back and I reread the first sentence and the second sentence. And then I have to go back and change the first sentence. This is the way I used to write in high school, and it was miserable. It took forever.
Mhm.
Now I just really write super fast. And I think that really helps with the flow of the email. So the email is like, oh, this is kind of like fast and fun to read. And then that happens quickly. Like I can do that in 5 or 10 minutes. And then because I'm kind of like uh, I don't know what to call it, like a pansy when it comes to editing. So I'll spend like another 30 minutes like tweaking it and making sure that I'm really happy with all the small details and that I don't have any typos, even though I still will have typos and so on. But yeah, so basically having an idea, writing for 10 minutes to write the outline and the skeleton. And lots of times cool ideas will happen if I'm just allow myself to write really quickly and then
Yeah.
polish in minutes. And that's it.
When you're doing the skeleton, are we talking you're writing it like you would be writing it normally, or are you doing kind of bullets, beats, and then filling in the blanks? Because I mean, I text you earlier in the week because a question I've been loving from Tim Ferriss is like, what if this was easy? And I'm looking at my business and I'm like, well, mate, you're writing a 2,000 word email every week. You could probably get the same effect with a 500. So I was like, today I'm going to write a 500 word email. And when I finished it, it was 2,000 words.
Okay.
And so like, how do you make sure you stay within these like constraints? Did you have, so you got the story, the idea, the lesson. How many kind of brick walls are you putting out to stop the waffling?
I don't, and that would be kind of like the thing where, I mean, okay, I'll tell you one thing that so like I feel like I'm trying to like impress people with how smart I am,
Mm,
and it just gets me into trouble because A, I'm not that smart, and B, like nobody really wants to hear how smart you are. Like they want to read something that's fun and interesting and not like, oh my God, this guy's covered every base, right? And so um I used to just sit down and basically write things and insert a lot of stuff. And now lots of times I will, even before I write my outline or the skeleton, I will force myself to write a 3 point summary of the scene. Like, okay,
mm,
points. Like, what is it that you want to, what's the beginning? What's the middle? And you get 3 points, and that's it. That's all I'll allow myself to do. And then once I've done that, then I'll write that skeleton because I feel like if I can't somehow summarize what I want, even just to myself, in 3 points, then it's not going to be clear enough, right? That said, I've definitely written longer emails, and I've written emails that meander, and I've written emails that I think, you and I were texting. I've written emails that were 1,200 words that made good sales or made high ticket sales. I have responded to people who wrote much longer emails. So I don't think that the length is really the problem. Um, it's more like, yeah, if you yourself don't want to write that because it's taking you that long, what I would actually, I mean, I wouldn't advise you because I think that you have your own system and you're doing it very well. But previously, when I've coached people and I realize that their emails are just way too long, I tell them like you have 2 emails here, or you have 3 emails in this
Mm-hmm.
thing that, right? And if you break it up, it's going to be more effective, and you're done with the work that you did today. You're done for the next 3 days if you're writing daily emails, right? So if you sit down to write a 500 word email and it ends up being 2,000 words, I mean, if really all you're doing is giving additional examples to support your point, maybe that's 100% fine. But maybe what you actually have is three 600-word emails that you could reuse, And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the way of looking at it and being like, okay, well, am I actually making multiple points? Could I break this out and put a slightly different introduction to it, or a different headline, and actually have different
Mm-hmm.
stuff? So maybe it's not about stopping yourself from writing those long posts. Maybe it's more about like looking at it critically afterwards and being like, oh, this is nice. I did work not just for this week, but I did work for the next 3 weeks, and I
Yeah.
can read.
Actually, that's a good point because I've got a email coming out breaking down the birthday launch that happened last month, and a lot of things didn't actually go as well as expected, and it's going to be 2 points and it ended up being like 10. So maybe I'll just split them in half, and that would be nice to buy back a week. And it's not that I don't want to write a long email; it's that I bloody love writing the long
Yeah,
email. That's the problem. I think in like my La La Land, I just want to write long ass essays every week and not do any sort of business work. But
yeah.
it's like you've got to pull your finger out a bit. And it's kind of leads you to one question for you, mate. The first thing I bought from you was your book, the Ten Commandments of A-list Copywriters. And by the way, if anyone, if you haven't read it, it's one of my favorite copywriting books ever. It is so smoothly written. And one thing I would love to do is write a book, and I've always been pushing it off because, well, for one, the financial incentives are better to do courses and cohorts and coaching, etc. But what's your experience of writing a book? And I'm glad you're, well, I presume you're quite grateful that you've written it.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so first of all, writing that book was actually fun, right? And I enjoyed writing it, and I'm writing another one right now because if anything, I feel stupid that I haven't written more books since then
Mm,
because it's so valuable to me. It's been valuable because A, it's like a very easy way to get people onto the list. It's not a huge number of people who get onto the list that way, but it's very high quality people. And the other thing is that like, I think that if you get a few more books, if you get a few books written, and these books can be very, very small. Like I think our idea, or many people's ideas, are still that like, okay, a book has to be, I don't know, 180 pages minimum, right?
mm,
That's not true today
yeah.
anymore. This A-list copywriters book that I have, the Ten Commandments, that I think if you put it into, in the paperback version, it's like this size, and I think it's maybe 100 pages, but I think on a
Yeah.
slightly more normal format, it might be 40 pages of text, And writing it took me less than a month, and I reused emails and I reused content from that book for emails as well. And yeah, and again, I got a lot of very high quality people onto my list who've ended up buying courses and ended up buying coaching, and it's been very valuable that way. And it's also been valuable because people like you read it and kind of got it maybe closer to me or got more interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I like to say is that like courses really are not referable. Like it's very unlikely, even if somebody likes your course. I mean, like even if somebody is a super fan of your course, maybe they're going to be like, this course is super good. I recommend it, but they're not going to be
Everyone's super fans of my courses, mate. No, I'm only kidding.
absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, I know you are a rare exception, but for the rest of us, um, yeah, absolutely. But unless you are at Kieran Drew levels of course
I'm only
creation,
kidding. I'm
yeah,
complete amateur. Sorry, I take it all back. I rescind that bit.
no, I mean, so basically, it's much, much easier to recommend the book. And I don't know why that is. I don't know whether it's the format and people are just used to being like, oh, this is a great book. You got to read the book.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the price point where it's like people feel like maybe like, oh, yeah, this is a great course. You should like plop down, a couple $100 or a couple $1,000. But somehow books are things that like I've had multiple people like recommend me online and mention me because of that book. I've put a lot more work into some of the courses that I've created, but I don't think that like those courses made me much more money than the book did, but they didn't get me nearly the exposure that the book did.
Mm.
And in the end, when I consider all in all, like how much money I made via that book, I think it was also a smart financial decision, not only this kind of
Yeah.
soft stuff.
Well, I also
So
find that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the book is just a better compounding asset because courses kind of get out of date. I mean, for you, you're in email, so maybe less so, but yeah, I don't know. Like I heard James Clear say build assets that compound, and I was like, well, look, you've spent 1,000 hours writing social media content. That's like 3 books.
yeah,
And it was interesting to say about the book size because again, the way I built it up in my head, a book has to be 3 years. It has to be the mecca of all material. And then when I was looking at the books I actually love the most, it's Derek Sivers, Seth Godin, Jason Fried, and it was like, no, these are all super short books with chapter. Your book, and that took a lot of mental pressure off. And so I'm hoping by end of the year. But one thing you've said multiple times is fun. Like, how important do you think having fun is in writing? I know it's a very trite question, but it seems like you're always having a good time when you're writing.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people ask me, like, oh, I feel like a lot of people are fascinated with the fact that um, I'm not on social media, you know, and a lot of people are like fascinated that I kind of like have this business where um, I write an email a day and it's become kind of a business on its own. And they are like, how did you do it? And I'm like, well, the fact is, I don't advise anybody to do what I did, which is just that I was writing into the void for years. Like nobody was reading, I wasn't making any money, but I kind of liked doing it, right? It was just like, oh, I'm learning something. This is cool. I'm getting to practice. I had other incentives to do it because I was working as a copywriter. And so I was like, okay, it's kind of like helping me maybe build some sort of relevant portfolio or I can practice stuff and it's kind of my sandbox. But still, like my advice for everybody ultimately, if you're going to be building a personal business, a personal brand, is it's got to be sustainable for the long term, right? And the baseline for that is that you can't hate it, right? If you hate what you're doing or if it's miserable, you're not going to stick to it, right? And there's always going to be that gray area where you're like, yeah, this is fine. And you're doing some stuff that maybe is not amazing, but you also don't hate it. And then above that, there's got to be like times when you're like, oh, I'm actually enjoying this, you know. And I think that probably 4 days out of five, like I'm stressed before I write my email. And then I write the email and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, or I'm like a little bit nervous because I'm like, this is risky or strange, but I write it and then I'm for that moment satisfied with what I've written and I feel good for the rest of that day. And I think that's a huge component of having been able to stick to what I'm doing for a long time. And I
Good
think to some
feedback
extent,
loop.
yeah, exactly. And I think it comes through to some extent in the writing. There was this guy, um, I've never actually read anything of his, but I guess he was like a famous humor writer in his time. His name was S.J. Perlman. And I think he was like actually kind of, I don't know, I mean, I don't know the story well, but I think maybe he wasn't like the world's happiest person in real life, but he wrote very humorously. And and this is exactly what he said. People were like, oh, how do you write humorous and for humor? And he said, like, audience has to feel that you're having fun and you have to basically get into that mood at that moment.
Sorry, I just hit mute. Yeah, yeah. And you just to touch on what you said, it's quite a common story actually. A lot of us, I mean, mine was 13 months of posting to the void. And when people say like, how did you, and it was a little bit tough because you're juggling the 9 to 5, but there was a quote from Jack Butcher that I still remind everyone where it's like, if you find the thing you love before the results roll in, you'll be unstoppable when they do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that trial by fire. I think writers have to prove it to themselves before they get to prove it to the world.
Mhm.
And I think actually one of the worst things to do is some people, they go viral straight away and then they have their entire path dictated by the applause of a crowd and
Mhm.
actually just following your curiosity at every turn. There are genuine days where I'm writing, like laughing to myself, and they always are the best emails.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think people need to lean into that. And we're going to go through some of the questions, guys. If you have any questions, just please fire away. But you have mentioned that, no social media. So where are you getting your leads from? Like how is this kind of like a sustainable business for you? The sub unsub rate, is it pretty steady or?
Yeah, it's steady, and my list is slowly inching up, but very, very slowly. In terms of where I get leads from, I've been very lucky that like I got so I started posting um my emails on my site as kind of an archive. And I think I get 20 visitors a day from Google, right? So it's not
Mhm.
like I think I have probably millions of words of content on my site. I think I maybe get 20 to 30 visitors a day. But because especially in the early days of my site, I was really writing about, let's say, hardcore copywriting and direct marketing topics. And the people who did find me tended to be very like into that stuff, and including some people who were very influential. And some of those people like recommended me to other people. Some of those people recommended me to their audiences. I don't know whether your audience know these people, but like Rich Shepard is a big name in the marketing space, and he's kind of a successful guy and he's very well connected, and he got into my list, and via him I got recommended to Mark Ford, who wrote that book Great Leads. And
Fantastic
he's
book.
like, yeah, he's like this guy who's helped build this enormous copywriting company, Agora, and he has influence over hundreds, if not thousands, of copywriters. And he recommended my stuff inside of his thing, and so that's where I got a lot of like very high level copywriters signing up to my list. Daniel Throssell has been also like a huge help. He was super nice to me in my early days. I think I had 200 people on my list, and he somehow found my blog and my newsletter, and he liked my stuff, and he suggested we do a list swap, and I said, I'm happy to do it, but like his list was, I think, I don't know, 5,000 people. My list was 200 people. And I
Mhm.
told him it's not going to be worth it for you, but he was super cool about it. And he said, it's no problem. Like we can make a deal. And he recommended me to people. And I think my list like tripled in the matter of like 3 days. Like it was
Yeah.
insane. Like I went, 200 people to 700 people in 3 days. And after that, it's been, yeah, kind of like a trickle of people via SEO, some promos. You recommended me. That was also a huge help. And then, just some word of mouth and occasional like affiliate promo, like that.
I was gonna say, mate,
Yeah.
you've said luck, but I don't think that's lucky at all. You're very easy to refer. Like even when you said today, I maybe don't promote my list again because it wouldn't be a viable swap. And it's like, no, no, like I genuinely want to promote your list because you're so good at writing. And so I don't think it's luck. And um, people really underestimate the power of word of mouth, I think. And I think one reason that you have great word of mouth and one reason that other people can get it, even if they're not experts, is less but better. You're not here trying to be the YouTube star, email star, social media star, like a lot of people are trying to do. And it's a lot easier to refer someone when it's like, that's John, the email guy. Being known for something. And so I always tell people, we kind of touched on this right at the start, where it's like, especially early on, one channel, one avatar, one problem, one solution. Like the narrower you can go, the easier you are to refer to other people. And it only takes a couple of things like spark a catalyst, right? So yeah, I mean, with your list growth though, you're sending daily emails, which means you must get a high unsubscribe rate as well. So is it staying pretty even, or is it pretty cool for you?
I mean, honestly, I don't get a lot of unsubscribes. Like I
Yeah.
think on average, maybe I get like one to two unsubscribes per day.
Okay.
I think the thing is that like it's like I don't know, having a hedge and just clipping that hedge very daily, right? So if somebody really doesn't want to read my emails, I mean, for one thing, I'm transparent about the fact that like I don't have a lead magnet,
Yeah.
like people, I tell people like I write a daily email list. Like, do you want to sign up,
Mhm.
And so there's already kind of selection there where people are like, if they don't want to read, there's no other incentive for them to read except that maybe they've heard about me or maybe they want to like read the daily emails, but I'm not giving them something away in exchange.
Mhm.
Um, and then Yeah, there are. I mean, just a few days ago, I saw there was a guy who signed up to my emails somehow, and he got the first email and then he unsubscribed, and that's fine. And that's how it goes because I feel like, if people don't enjoy this, if they don't want to read my ramblings every day, um, then they're not going to last long, and that's fine. But I don't know, for every five people who sign up, maybe three will stick around.
Yeah.
That's okay for me. And again, in terms of how it's a viable business, it's because the people who do stick around, I keep creating, you got to keep creating some sort of offers or
Yeah.
putting out some sort of offers. It helps if you have some sort of like higher ticket offers. And, some people who've been on my list have been on my list for 3, 4 years. They've been buying products for me or
Yeah.
trainings from me or coaching from me for 2, 3, 4 years. And that's how, with a small list, I've been able to like live off of it for a couple of years
I
now.
think people really underappreciate the impact of a tight, specific list because, especially when you come from social media, it's kind of like there's always a more attitude. But um, my list is basically stored on growth, and yet the revenue has 50x.
Yeah.
And I think that what people like, again, one thing, everyone's like, I just want a digital product business. And it's like, unless you have massive scale, that's going to be quite difficult. So just having that thing where there's something for everyone to buy, but having that high ticket version. And
Mhm.
actually, what you find is once your list is specific, you can keep building things for them from different angles, and people want to buy it. That was like the big reframe for me. I was always like, oh, I don't want to sell. And like, no, people want to buy from you.
Yeah.
And one thing that you do extremely well for that, mate, is positioning yourself as a thought leader. Do you do that quite intentionally, or is this just like the natural style for you? Are you quite particular about the angles and positioning that you take?
I mean, in a way, I am and I'm not. Like, I'm not adopting specific ideas because I'm like, oh, this will be a hot take. And if anything, I'm like, I'm a little bit allergic to hot takes just for the sake of hot takes.
Yeah.
But I feel like I just have like, I mean, the way that I put it is like I have a well-developed sense of shame. And I'm just like, if I'm writing something and I finish it, I'm like, this is kind of like preachy, or this is kind of stale. And
Mm,
I can't send this out. Like I'd be like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to say this. It just seems like I feel like I
you
need
got to
to
be your
read.
own biggest fan, right?
What's that?
You got to be your own biggest fan.
I don't know about my biggest fan, but definitely my biggest critic, just being like, "Ah,
Sure.
this is not good enough. Like I can't do this. And so yeah, just having like that standard of just being like, am I just repeating what other people are saying, or am I just like saying stuff to try to sound provocative and just like, am I make saying provocative stuff just does it try hard?
Yeah.
And just having that kind of sense of being like, well, on the one hand, I want to push the envelope. I want to push myself as both in terms of having new ideas and the way I present those ideas to be maybe more fun, more challenging, more provocative. But at
Mm,
the same time, be like, do I feel okay with what I'm writing? And I think that
mm,
um, having that sort of balance of there, like, okay, I want to say something new, and I also want to do it in a way where it's challenging people and it's surprising people, but at the same time, I don't want to feel like I'm pandering to my audience.
yeah.
Somewhere in between there, and I don't know where, but that's again where your like internal sense of taste comes in, where it's like you want to surprise people and maybe shock them and maybe even like emotionally stir them up, and yet you don't want to feel like, again, you're pandering. And so somewhere in there is the golden mean.
Yeah, I think it's really worth highlighting something that you said for our audience. The whole, am I saying something because I think that's what other people were saying? And this mimetic theory stuff is really, really powerful. And the problem with social media is you can get it's like incentive drag. It can really happen quite fast. And the way that I've worked out what I genuinely believe in content is I stopped consuming all social media stuff and I just read books and I highlight and then I use Readwise. Readwise exports all the highlights to the app, and then for every highlight, I ask, "What does that mean to me?" And then I
Mhm.
turn it into content. And that's
Yeah.
kind of like using your own curiosity to guide and therefore attract other people. So if people are struggling with that, it's a really cool way, and it's just kind of gives a bit more purpose behind the writing as well. You're literally letting what catches your attention guide how you attract attention, and it's quite a cool loop actually, I think. or I could just be chatting shit, but it's worked for me anyway.
No,
Um,
I think you're absolutely right. And this is actually that I'm glad you brought that up because this is actually kind of my, let's say, secret sauce. Because I feel like if you want to be, if you want to come up with hot takes, I feel like in a way that's hard work, right? Because there's a huge number of people out there, and there's like kind of the crest of that wave of what everybody thinks about, I don't know, like Puffy's like sex party, right? Or whatever is happening right now. Like whatever the thing is, like somebody, everybody's commenting on it. There's tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people commenting on it. And odds are that like anything cool or new you want to say, somebody somewhere has said, right? And my shortcut or like my completely like roundabout way is exactly what you say, where like I tune that out. And instead of commenting on what's happening now and trying to have a hot take, I will like read old stuff and be like, oh, this is actually interesting, or this is like maybe relevant today. And I'm competing with nobody because I don't know, I'm reading like parallel lives, the these Greek and famous Greeks and Romans compared, right?
Mhm.
Written 2000 years ago. I don't think a lot of people in the direct marketing world are reading this right now. Nobody else is writing about it. But I've written emails about it because I came across really interesting stories in there and takeaways. And I think when I do that, I mean, I don't want to write every day about ancient Greeks and Romans, but I'm reading a few books at a time. And there's always something interesting to bring in. It's really a shortcut. And I think it keeps your sanity and it makes you sound unique. And if you want to be a thought leader, I think that's like really clever way to do it. And I feel like I get free points by reading old and difficult books,
Mhm.
where it's like, okay, like this is a bit of a struggle. It's not reading Harry Potter, and it might be like dry, and it might take me time to work through this ancient book and understand what the hell they meant. But I feel like the money, the time that I spend investing in that, I save in content creation where I'm like, oh, now I have all of this interesting stuff to say, and I don't have to try so hard to sound different or to have some sort of like provocative take because I genuinely have something different to say that nobody else is saying because I did kind of the preparation.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little discussion with someone on Twitter yesterday because it's quite a common expression where you should read just in need or something, just in time, where basically you only read the stuff that you need for whatever you're doing. And I actually fundamentally disagree with that because you're never going to need, like right now, I'm teaching myself Taoism. I'm never really going to need that. And yet, my best content ideas have come like in this book that's 2000 years old. And the cool thing about books that have withstood the test of time is that they withstood it for a reason, right? And it's one of the most exciting times to be a writer because you're actually just an idea synthesizer. You're not like being original, you're just packaging.
Right.
And I think again, you do that really well, and it's a really fun way to learn and as well. So it's a cool feedback loop. John has asked how many hours slash day or week do you read? How much do you read?
I mean,
Where we get our measuring sticks out.
yeah, I don't know. I tend to read in the evenings before I go to bed. I would say an hour a day at least, but ideally I would be reading more, maybe 2 hours a day. And I know that might sound like a lot, but again, I mean, I have a very simple life. I'm not married, I don't have kids. So once I'm done with the day, that's it. But I even noticed during the day that like, I sit down for breakfast and I could be on the computer and I could be like listening to some marketing stuff and I could be listening to music or I could be watching YouTube. But I do that sometimes, but I also realize that, you know what? That's 15 or 20 minutes where I can pull out the New Yorker, which I think is like easy reading, but it's fun and always also exposes me to ideas. And read for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah,
Or I don't know, you have 15 minutes before something, before lunch is ready or before you go out, you're waiting for somebody. 15 minutes of reading here and there, if you package that up a few times during the day. And I'm telling this to myself as well as to anybody who's listening, but it's like, if you package up 3 times 15 minutes a day, that's 45 minutes of reading, and you can squeeze that in
yeah.
between a
I
lot
mean,
of.
I did the exact same thing as a dentist. I because I remember Naval saying if you read an hour a day, you're in the top 0.1%. And I think people think they lack time, but really they lack priorities and efficiency. And well, like one of my best changes was so you got the Kindle. And I have a Kindle holder, so it's just like a stand that's attached to the table, so that when I'm eating, it's just hovering in front of me. And that friction of not having to hold the book makes it so much easier to not whip out the TV. And the only other weird thing I've started doing is eating without watching anything and just thinking about
Oh,
how nice the food is.
yeah.
It is, I just, I feel like we end up distracting ourselves from one of life's greatest pleasures.
I,
And
you're
it,
I one thing that I want to do, and I keep talking about it for years, is just really to have like a day a week where it's like media free, including books. Just be like, I
yeah,
really completely disconnect and like just let.
tough though. Yeah. I should make sure I got all the questions on. I'm conscious that we've used up our hour. So we've gone through your writing process. I think we pretty much, some people have asked about your favorite ways of writing, and I'll just say to everyone here, for John's writing method, he has a course called Simple Money Emails. It is, I mean, I've told him to up the price so many times. It's the highest ROI I think I bought because he just has a simple one, two repeatable step process with it. And so it's how actually, so I got the course before the first high impact writing launch. And every single email, every sales email I write, I follow John's process. So I do attribute a lot of money to him. That's why I sent him a book. He sent me a bottle of whiskey, so we're on a nice trade there. And so if you want, I've got a link for the course here. I think, John, you were mentioning that if you pick up the course like over the next few days, there's also a list growth course as well, which I think is like $200 from another creator, right?
Yeah. So okay, because here's a
And you
marketing
could,
tip for you
yeah, I
need
was
a
about to
deadline.
say,
You need a deadline and you need a special offer. And so since I wanted to promote something here, I reached out to this guy who has a course on using newsletter ads to grow his list. And this is something that, we were talking about earlier, about growing your list. And this is beyond just word of mouth. This is the one thing that's worked best for
Mhm.
me. And this guy actually, his name is Matt Jarrow, and he created a course where I gave him some tips initially about how to do this, using newsletter ads to kickstart his list. And he was willing and he was good enough to give me a version of his course to package up with my course until this Saturday at midnight PST. So if you get my course, you get his course for free,
You mentioned
through.
about, yeah, yeah, cool. So I definitely, again, even if just for SME, I love it, man. Like the swipe file is so good. I've actually hand copied almost like three-quarters of your emails now.
Oh,
So I'm just going to make you obsolete is my plan. I'm going to be Kieran Vaynerchuk by like next year. Um, but you mentioned about newsletter ads, man, for your growth. Have you done that a lot? Have you got another 5 minutes? Is that okay?
yeah, I've got time, so I'm happy to stay on
Cool.
as long as.
Yeah, newsletter ads because what I have found now, man, is so I've got quite a lot of subscribers, about 32K. Well, actually, I think there's 7,000 cold ones. So, but the 32K sounds nicer than 25, and I need to clean that shit. I've realized that organic is very unreliable in terms of well, everyone just felt this pinch. Links got destroyed. So now I'm looking at ads, and how do you run ads if you don't have a lead magnet? For one,
Okay, so that's the thing. So when I did run ads, I created a lead magnet. And
okay.
that's in part why I didn't pursue this strategy as thoroughly as I could have. And that's why Matt kind of overtook me and figured out a way to like consistently have the thing. Because the way that I was doing it is that I had a unique lead magnet for the ads that I ran. And that was
Mm,
a lot of work. Um, and so sometimes I created an entirely new course, sometime, and I would give it away. Other
mm,
times I built up a bunch of stuff. And also I had an offer, right, for people who signed up. So there was like a kind of, they sign up for free and I have a time limited offer that I had to create. So for all of those things, it was just like a lot of work. I did run ads when it was just my list, and I try to do it based on just my authority and be like, here's this great email list. Why don't you sign up for it? And I got some people signing up, but it didn't pay for the ad, right?
mm.
Or anywhere close to it. So if you do want to run newsletter ads, I would strongly encourage you to come up with a worthwhile lead magnet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually building a few lead magnets now. So when I saw that guy's course, are you sending it to current customers, by the way? Because I'd like it to.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
bro. So maybe
I think
rebuy
I
it.
don't expect the email, but I send out an email about it. So that's my philosophy. It's like if I'm if I come out with any kind of bonus in the future, that goes to all the previous customers as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said I've been stealing everything from you. I've been doing the same behind that writing. The OG customers now have had 4 separate courses, 5 interviews, and I just think what a fantastic way to create fans,
Yeah.
whilst also having inbuilt deadlines for growing your business. So I really like that from you, man. You mentioned about having a immediate paid thing kind of when people sign up. So right now, my front of funnel is high impact writing,
Mhm.
which is 397 going up to 497. And I guess that I'm not a great entrepreneur because I've just relied on social media and you just get like free pass for a lot of stuff with personal brands. How important is it having a tripwire versus are you happy to take the hit on having like a longer buy cycle?
Um, you mean like if you were to run a newsletter ad and having high
Well,
impact
yeah,
writing?
so
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, I've run some. I did Spark Loop. That was a fail, but I didn't set it up properly. You told me about that afterwards, actually. I think I spent 2K and made 1.5K or so, or maybe a bit worse than that. But could be better now. I'm not sure. And now I'm running
I mean, honestly,
newsletter.
that doesn't sound bad. So,
Oh, okay, cool. Well, actually, I'd only meant to spend $500, and then like 4 months later, I was like, wait, did I do that experiment? And I looked at it, been taking money out the whole time, and I was like, Jesus Christ. Um, so now I'm running newsletter ads. So I've just paid someone on LinkedIn, and I figured there's no point in paying for ads for people from Twitter because generally, if they're a writer on Twitter, hopefully they're following me anyway.
but,
So I'm trying to like tap into Instagram and LinkedIn, and yeah, I'm not sure if I should have a $20 product or if I'm just adding complexity because I hate complexity, man. Like all I want is 3 good products, and then I just wanted to just do that, like under chaperone style.
yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. I think for one thing, I think high impact writing is very good because it's like it's backed by your authority, and yet it's not like solely your persona. So I think that definitely could sell. Now, in terms of the price, I don't know. I'd say you have to test it out. Like, I don't know if somebody's gonna go from signing up for a free lead magnet to buying a 400 or $300 course or $400 course. The other thing is that if they're going to buy, you have to give them a reason to buy now, right?
Yeah,
And that's a question of like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't know if you do discounts or if not, then it's like, what's going to be the offer where you're like, this is the only
yeah.
time you're going to see this. And
Well,
when I
what I've
did,
done is, oh,
yeah,
sorry, yeah, I have to say I'll get my free coaching session now. So
that,
originally I had 50% off, and then I realized what a terrible way to begin your relationship with cheapening your brand. So what they
that's,
get is 6 days of emails.
okay,
Not this whole like what you warned me against about doing the whole like building up to the pitch right at the end. The course is mentioned throughout, but no
okay,
like hard pitching. Then I've got a deadline funnel set up, which is 4 days. And in those 4 days, if you buy high impact writing, you actually get the bonus courses that all the customers already have, and you get that for free.
okay.
And yeah, I don't know if it's going to be enough. I started running it last week. I've had one buyer, and there's maybe been 100 people through. So far it's 1%, but
Yeah,
I need 10 extra volume to really find out.
yeah. And I mean, again, the to me the criteria for this kind of stuff is like, yeah, if you can make it pay on day zero, that's great, right? And be like, oh, it's amazing. But even if not, like if you can run a newsletter ad and make your money back in 3 months and get a bunch of new subscribers onto your list, for me that's a deal that I'd be happy to make, especially
Mm,
if I can do it in a way where um, it's not requiring extra work for me, right? So that if
mm.
I can set it up, I know that I can run 4 newsletter ads per month, get an extra, I don't know, 500 readers onto my list, and I'm going to make that money back one way or another in the next 3 months. I'm okay with that, right? That said, what I did, and again, this is like I pulled out all the stops when I was running newsletter ads, and I had time limited offers, which were, let's say, legit time limited offers in the sense of they were 24 hours, you either bought or you didn't, and they would not be available again. Like
Mm.
literally, it wasn't, well, here's my course and here's some bonuses. It was like, no, there's a training that's happening next Thursday. You can either buy the ticket today and you can get into that training or you won't, right?
Was this a
And
live
so,
training
yeah,
or
it was
like
a
a
live.
fake? Okay.
No, no, it was a live training. It happened. I charged for it, and that's how I made like my money back on day zero, right? Because
Mm,
people signed up for that. And for the other newsletter ad that did very well, for the one that I did with Daniel Throssell, I I pulled out this thing that had been sitting in the closet for a while that I had been planning to turn into a $500 video course. And it was basically all the notes for that. And I said, like, chances are I'm never going to turn this into a video course. I'm gonna, um, you can get it now for $100. Like,
mm,
I don't know if I'm ever going to sell it again. There's a good chance that I won't. And if I do, it'll be at a significantly higher price. And I paid off. So Daniel's ad was $1,000, and I think I paid it off in 2 hours, right? So 10 people who were completely new
mm.
buying that. So, and I got hundreds of readers via that ad, So again, if I could do that every day, I would, except that I can't without putting in the work of creating a custom lead magnet and creating a custom disappearing offer as an upsell. But that's why, again, Matt has figured out a system that works for him. And I
Cool.
think that for a lot of other people as well.
I quite like it's starting to feel a bit like a game business now. Now that maybe it's a little bit more secure, it's been quite fun to like I have someone helping out running a 30-day challenge soon with MCM, which I want to find out about, and that's been quite fun. But one thing you just said there that so say you're going to do this the webinar version, there's a live training coming out on the Thursday, or even the Daniel Frossel thing. That to me sounds very appealing because I could do something similar, but it's like, why would you not find 10 separate newsletters to run the offer all at once?
You
And then
could
you just have to do the one training. You could. It sounds like
actually
it could
that
be a ball ache, but
no, no, I think that's a really smart idea because I think what I was doing was exactly part of the problem was exactly this, that like it was like, okay, well, I have one event happening now and I'm doing it for maybe a few hundred people. But if I could do it for a few thousand people and reuse that work, then suddenly that's like, well, yeah, no problem. Or if you can even make it coincide with some sort of training that you are doing already,
mm,
I'm putting on, for example, if we were charging for this call, right? And you know that you're going to be doing this call, and then a week ago you could have run an ad and be like, oh, by the way, there's a I'm putting on this training next Thursday. It's going to be $100. If you want it, this is the time to get it because afterwards, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it available. If I do make it available, it'll be more expensive, right? And
mm.
here's what I'm going to get. And that way you can kind of reuse what you would have been doing otherwise and use that um, as a way to monetize a classified ad or
How good are
newsletter.
you at doing this reusing stuff? Because I suck at it, and like actually, it's. I think if you're quite intentional, there is so much you can. Like, for example, I've got an 8,000 word essay that I still haven't repurposed into 5 emails, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm playing it on hard mode all the time. Are you quite good at this, or are you? Because you got
No.
daily emails, man. Like there must
Yeah,
have
exactly.
billions of ideas.
I mean, at some point, I told myself like I could probably within the next 2 weeks publish 10 books on Amazon,
Mm,
just repurposing emails that I have archived on my site that are not doing anything. Because again, I get maybe 20 visitors a day from Google. So I'm not good at it, but even not being good at it, I'm still getting slightly better at it. So, over time, I've created different offers. Some of those took off. Some of those didn't, or maybe even if they did, I didn't want to keep promoting them for whatever reason. But down the line, maybe I used those as bonuses. Again, like when I wrote that Ten Commandments book, a lot of that came from emails.
yeah,
Or as I was writing it, I would write my daily email to be the opening chapter, I mean, the opening part of a chapter of that book. And later, there were parts of the book that I was like, oh, you know what? I don't have anything planned for an email today. Let me rip out that middle third of that chapter and I can reuse that for an email. So I
yeah.
think over time, it just becomes a little bit easier, but I think you're absolutely right where you just have to think about it consciously for a while and you have to make a habit of it because yeah, it's insane. Like we're all creating so much content
Yeah.
and it just sits there and it's not doing anything and it's a waste.
Yeah, it's like the people they're not working harder than you, they're just more leveraged. And I'm trying to get better at that. And one thing is the book. So I'm writing emails now pretending that they're book chapters, or at least the intros. Um, But look, I'll wrap it up there, man. Thank you so much for your time. Like I could talk to you for hours, but maybe we'll do another one at one point in the future. I really appreciate your time. And like I said, guys, I put a link for Simple Money emails. It is an affiliate link. You will be funding my caffeine addiction, but I highly recommend it. It's the course I probably recommend the most to everybody. John just has a very, very good way of teaching, and it's a cool way to learn storytelling. So, John, I don't know if you've got any final words, but it's been a pleasure to have you, mate.
I'm just very happy to. I mean, it was actually really nice talking to you, and I feel like a lot of times when I get on these kinds of conversations, like a little bit like, what are we going to talk about? But I feel like this just flew by. So
I could
I'm
talk
very
for England, mate.
I don't know. Just thanks again for having me. This was great. So I
Pleasure.
guess everybody out there, if you want to get on my list, or even if you don't, just if you have any questions, if I can help out, send me an email, and I'm here for you. If you're here in Screw, I'm happy to help out. So that's it.
And John's list is desertkite.com. I mean, it's .com, isn't it?
It is, but also just if you, even if you take my last name and put .com, you'll get to my site, and that's it.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Yeah, brilliant, man. Well, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm going on holiday tomorrow, so but I mean, we're finishing off with David Deutsch. So David is a pretty heavyweight copywriter, and he actually I sent him my sales page a month ago. He sent me a 3 hour teardown. So I'm basically getting him on there to apologize. So it'd be a good call. And otherwise, I hope you all have a brilliant week ahead. And I'll send you an email with the recording soon. Cheers, John, mate. Thanks everyone for coming. See you later.
I really
Bye.